Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a thriller sci-fi from 2011 titled Contagion. The film opens in a Chinese airport, where a middle-aged woman named Beth is taking a flight back to the USA after her work's done in Hong Kong. She gets a call from a man she pulled a one-night stand with, during which she coughs and feels dizzy.
And listen, use that other email I gave you, because... You alright?
Jet-lagged.
Well, you should go home and get some rest.
The scenes are then spun to multiple cases of people getting contaminated with a virus, which starts off as flu but gets worse, eventually resulting in death. Currently, it is shown the American health facilities are unaware of such an outbreak. The head of the health facility in Georgia, named Dr. Ellis, is seen mingling with a garbage cleaner outside his facility, guaranteeing that he will appoint a doctor to help his son, whose attention deficit. Simultaneously, a small-time journalist named Alan weaves theories about the virus after seeing one video, claiming it's spreading through fish with high levels of mercury.
From mercury in the fish.
But the governments don't want the word out in the public. Back on Beth's side, she returns home to her husband, Mitch, and her son. Her flu gets worse and transfers on to her son. The son's teachers call Mitch to pick him up since his flu is getting worse. When Mitch returns home with his son, Beth has a stroke, and her mouth foams up. Panicking, he calls the ambulance and hospitalizes Beth, only to watch her die. He becomes aggressive in such a state and is sent back home, where he finds his infected stepson dead too. As he's left traumatized with 2 deaths, the doctors at the World Health Organization discover some disturbing footage from Hong Kong, where 8 people have died due to the unknown virus in a complex, so they sit together and decide to quarantine that complex in order to contain the outbreak. Meanwhile, 2 doctors run an autopsy on Beth's corpse and find something so unusual in her brain that they decide to call and alert every health facility out there.
Should I call someone?
Call everyone.
Dr. Ellis from Georgia's health department also comes across the growing number of infected people in America, so he appoints one of his best doctors named Erin to tour the globe to not only find the cause of this virus, but also help every health facility isolate the sick and quarantine those who are exposed to the virus.
As of last night, there are 5 deaths and 32 cases.
There's a cluster in an elementary school.
Okay, that's the kind of thing you're going to have to be prepared for. It's going to be all over the news big time.
Speaking of virus, Mitch is held back in the hospital and is quarantined to make sure he hasn't gotten infected via Beth.
This is all just, a precaution that, just making sure. And I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with me. We're okay.
Meanwhile, Dr. Erie flies to the health department of Minnesota to discuss the possible ways the virus spreads, which include touch and respiration. They've sent the virus's samples to the CDC and are waiting for the results to show up for a better judgment on how to deal with it. While the tests are being run on the virus, Alan is seen bothering Dr. Ian to speak up on the conspiracies he's constantly weaving, but he isn't willing to talk to him. The next day, Dr. Ellis is confronted by 2 agents from Homeland Security and is called in for a meeting with their head, Haggerty, in order to discuss the statistics of the virus outspread. Haggerty, at one point, thinks that their nation is under attack by some kind of bioweapon from another country, posing as the virus, but isn't sure. Meanwhile, Erin visits Beth's town to personally check up on her colleagues. There, she finds out one of her colleagues recently came in contact with Beth and is now missing from work. She gets his number and calls him to find his whereabouts. Now fallen a victim to the virus, he's riding a bus, so Erin orders him to get the bus stopped and walk out of it immediately.
I'd like you to get off immediately.
Erin follows his location with her team and takes the dying colleague under her custody. She then visits Mitch and interviews him, during which she hints towards Beth's affair in Hong Kong.
Any idea what she did in Chicago during that layover? Did she have meetings? Is there any reason she might have left the airport?
Before we were married, my wife had a relationship with a man in Chicago named John Neal.
Meanwhile, Ellis sits with Ali from the CDC department and finds out the virus has officially spread from some farm pigs and bats, for which they have no vaccines or any kinds of protocol against it. Considering the fast spread of a serious threat, Ali decides to work on her own vaccine with a fellow doctor, Ian. While Ellis and Haggerty formally address the media in a press conference about the virus, another doctor named Leonora is sent to Hong Kong to visit the places Beth had spent with her lover and find out the people they came in contact with. Back in Hong Kong, Sun Feng is in charge of taking Leonora everywhere. He speaks of his mother, who's gotten infected. Back in America, Ian finds out in his lab that he's being shut down by the government.
Dr. Sussman, I heard that they were shutting us down.
So he speeds up his work and finds promising results. When Ellis finds out about this, he scolds Ally for this, but decides to let Ian work since they're low on options. Meanwhile, the media covers Ian's story, promising a vaccine that will take months to develop, whereas more than 8 million people have already been infected within 12 days.
Confirmed today that Dr. Ian Sussman of San Francisco has succeeded in growing the MEV1 virus in a laboratory setting. Officials at the CDC cautioned that the breakthrough is only the first step toward developing a vaccine, which is likely still months away from human trials. The WHO estimates the number of people infected worldwide to be over 8 million.
While Alan weaves more theories regarding how the government will capitalize on the vaccine and has purposefully created the virus in order to sell vaccines, Erin declares Mitch prone to the virus,
But the good news here is that you're not going to get sick.
and sends him back home. She then decides to set up a hospital in the stadium after seeing the growing number of patients for whom they don't have enough medical facilities. While Ellis calls Erin to catch up with her, the paranoid Mitch returns home to his daughter, Jory, whose guy friend is rejected from entering their house by Mitch.
No, actually, you should take them. Thank you, though.
Meanwhile, in Hong Kong, Leonora sits with their health department and implies that the virus officially originated from their town, which offends them.
A virus is too small to be seen on video camera.
Whereas Erin gets infected by the virus. Despite her life being on the line, she uses her wisdom to jot down her experience, so it can help people get a better idea of the symptoms. She also calls Ellis to deliver the news.
I think I'm sick. What should I do?
Well, I want you to stay in your room and I'll call the people at the health.
Hearing which, he becomes devastated and decides to arrange an emergency flight to bring her back. Back in Hong Kong, while Leonora is working on Beth's case and finding out how many people she has infected, Sun Feng asks her about the vaccine in America that's secretly being made. Leonora declares it a false alarm.
They say the French and Americans have a cure. They're manufacturing it in secret. WHO knows, but they're in bed with the Americans.
And asks about his mother, who has now died of the virus.
How's your mother?
Now, Leonora decides to end and submit her research in the ministry, but Sun Feng kidnaps her with his men and takes her to his village, so she can get them vaccines before anyone else gets their hands on them. On the other hand, Erin is dying, so she's hospitalized in the stadium hospital that she helped set up. Ellis tries to bring her back, but finds out from Haggerty that they're shutting down transportation and blocking all entrances of the most infected towns. Ellis believes the public will reign in chaos if such a thing occurs, but Haggerty requests that he keep the public quiet for a while.
We just need to make sure that nobody knows. Until everybody knows.
Alan now comes up with a homemade vaccine of his own and tests it on himself while going live on his social media, which makes him go viral. Ellis watches this and calls his wife after what he's found out from Haggerty. He orders her to move to their safe home. Meanwhile, the word gets out about the shutdown, so the public spirals out of control. It breaks into stores and steals supplies, while rogue people start setting random places on fire. Currently, the store, where Mitch is shopping from, gets looted by the public, so he takes Jory back to his car and decides to move out of town. Sadly, their town has been officially quarantined by Homeland Security, due to which Mitch and many other citizens are sent back to their town. Alan has now made his own hazmat suit and is walking the streets safely. He comes across his pregnant colleague, who was deprived of her medication due to the raging public. She endorses Alan's theories and begs him to help her. Poor Erin also dies and is buried among the infected ones in a ditch, with constant disinfectant being sprayed. Subsequently, Ellis appears in a TV interview where the host holds him and the Homeland Security accountable for keeping the public in the shadows, which has driven them to pure madness.
The drug ribavirin has been shown to be effective against this virus. Yet, Homeland Security is telling the CDC not to make any announcements until stockpiles of the drug can be secured.
The host also brings Alan on live call to counterattack Ellis's statements. Afterwards, Ellis joins Ali, who disappointingly breaks down that they're constantly failing in their vaccine trials. Ellis joins Haggerty once again in a press conference to relay the new statistics. according to which soon everyone out of 12 people will be contracted with the virus.
Approximately 1 in 12 people on the planet will contract the disease.
While Alan remains the only one roaming the streets without being infected, Americans start to face famine. Mitch is gathered in a large crowd to get food from a shady organization, which runs out of supply, making everyone fight for their food. Later that night, he witnesses his neighbor's abandoned home being robbed, so the next morning, he decides to rob it too for food. Jory finds this opportunity to escape with her boyfriend. Just as he tries to kiss her, Mitch shows up angrily and separates the two out of fear and trauma. Next, Ellis calls Allie and asks on behalf of Homeland Security if she can contaminate the water with her vaccine to cure large crowds at once.
Well, Homeland Security wants to know if we could put a vaccination in the water supply, like fluoride, cure everyone all at once.
But she refuses to and ends up injecting herself the 57th sample in despair. She then goes to visit her contagious father in the hospital, where she doesn't follow the safety protocols and purposefully comes in contact with him to know if the vaccine's working. Luckily, she doesn't get sick and is ordered to mass produce her vaccine, which becomes a hot topic for the media. On day 121, after the virus outspread, Ellis's wife gets robbed in her own home and is threatened to use his husband to get them vaccines first. When Ellis runs back home after finding out about the robbery, he finds out from his wife that the people have recognized him from the news and now have stalked him to find out where he lives, which is dangerous for her. As concerned he is relieved to know that he will be getting a vaccine for him and his wife tomorrow. Meanwhile, Alan is arrested by Homeland Security in a public park for security fraud and spreading conspiracies to provoke the public against the government. Haggerty holds yet another press conference, in which he chooses random dates and declares the people born on those certain dates will be getting the vaccines first.
First MEV1 vaccination are those people born on March 10th.
There, Ellis finds Ally still busting her butt to work on her vaccine, so Ellis tells her to take a minute to give herself the credit for saving millions of lives. Mitch becomes bummed to see their birth dates are nowhere near getting selected, while Jory becomes depressed, realizing she's being deprived of outdoors for a longer period. Back in Hong Kong, Leonora finally arranges a large number of vaccines for the town, with whom she's grown closer. Sun Feng and his men make the exchange on a bridge and give Leonora one vaccine before dropping her off. Leonora's colleague now takes her back to the airport, where he gives her the actual vaccination, revealing what he gave to the Chinese were the fake placebo ones. Hearing this, Leonora runs away to alert Sun Feng. Mitch goes to a mall to pick up some stuff to surprise Jory, whereas Alan is interrogated by one of the main guys from Homeland Security. Luckily, his 12 million fan following bails him out and saves him. Now, as he roams free and interviews people, Ellis and Haggerty receive the vaccines. Ellis receives 2 vaccines, one of which he gives away to the department's garbage cleaner's son and the other to his wife. Allie pours her blood and sweat into mass producing the vaccine. Mitch also opens himself up and throws his daughter a prom party, where he invites her boyfriend and watches the two dance. The film ends with a chef continuing to slaughter a pig and cooking him in a restaurant's kitchen. I hope you liked the story recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching and see you next time.